Hello everybody, it's me again, Mario7100, and we're back with Creepypastas. so, oh my gosh, the ones that we're reading today is 3 AM with Col Campbell and Max and Ruby 004. Oh my, the names of these ones, man, the names. So, let's start off with Col Campbell. Remember that scene in Metal Gear Solid 2 where Col Campbell starts talking funny? As if that wasn't creepy enough, there's a story about a boy and his father that's even creepier. A boy named Todd was playing his favorite game, Metal Gear Solid 2, at 3 AM in the morning. Where Raiden is freed from Ocelot's torture chamber and he starts getting odd messages from the Colonel. Todd had been playing games more recently since the passing of his dad, who died 5 months ago from a heart attack. He had been lazy and didn't exercise or encourage his son to exercise. Anyways, as usual, the first codec call comes up and Raiden answers it. After a few back and forth exchanges, Raiden asks Colonel, "Who are you?" And strangely, instead of Colonel saying, "No more questions, we have Rosemary," Colonel says, "It's me." The second codec. I'm sorry. The second codec call is even stranger. When the second call comes in, Colonel originally says, "Raiden, turn the game console off right now." This time he says, "Son, turn the game console off right now." More lines are exchanged. When Raiden asks Colonel, "What's wrong with you?" the Colonel originally says, "Don't worry, it's just a game. It's a game like usual." What he now says is, "It's just a game, son." Now, Rose originally appears and tells Raiden, "You're ruining your eyes playing so close to the TV." This time, Colonel says the line, but differently, saying, "You're ruining your life sitting so close to the TV." Now, in the original, Colonel follows up saying, "Raiden, something happened to me last Thursday. When I was driving home, I had a couple of miles to go. I looked up and saw a glowing orange object in the sky. To the east! It was moving very irregularly. Suddenly, there was an intense light all around me. When I first came to, I was home. What do you think happened to me?" Raiden asks, "Huh?" And the Colonel says, "Fine, forget it." This time, Colonel says, "Son, something happened to me this spring. When I was walking home, I had a couple of feet to go." The rest stays original until after the word regularly. When he finishes, suddenly there was an intense light all around me. And when I left, I came home. What do you think happened to me?" Raiden asks, "Who?" And then the Colonel says, "Fine, forget it." Colonel continues to berate Raiden for playing the game, saying, "Honestly though, you have played the game for a long time. Don't you think you have anything else to do with your time?" The codec calls keep coming as Colonel now says, "Actually, there's something I've been meaning to tell you, but I think I just couldn't. I think you should know though." He goes on to tell Raiden about seeing Rose possibly intimate with another man. Rose is a bitch. The next codec call is a line from MGS1 telling Raiden to find President Baker. This continues until Colonel says, "Snake, you are all alone and surrounded by bad guys." This time, Colonel says, "Son, you are all alone and surrounded by bad habits." Oh, God. The codec calls continues until Colonel says, "I was a North American fall webworm in my past life. Those were the good old days. What were you in my former life?" This time he says, "I was a North American father in my past life. Those were the good old days. What were you in my former life?" Another codec call passes when Colonel says, "Even my patience has its limits. I just can't leave this thing up to you anymore. I'll do the fighting. You can just go home." This time, everything with the fourth sentence is the same, where instead of Colonel saying, "You can just go home," he now says, "You can just go to bed." More codec calls come and go when Colonel says, "I can't believe it. That someone who has committed all those twisted acts in the women's bathroom. would make it this far. This is the end of the world. Everything but the words women's bathroom is the same now, being replaced by the word video game. The next code I call is the outright creepy one. Originally, Colonel says, Snake, like Shakespeare said, oh man, we're getting too edgy here, not had all spent where all desires have got without content. Basically means that your desires can get you inside trouble if you're not careful. That goes for items 2. Don't get too greedy or you might be sorry. Be careful, Snake. Now Colonel says, good, like Shakespeare said, not have all spent where our desires have got without content. Basically means that your desires can get you in trouble if you're not careful. That goes for item 2. Don't get too greedy or you might be sorry. Be careful, son. The final code I call that is mysteriously different is the one in which Colonel says, I'm not home right now. Please leave the message after the beep. Beep. The lines, I'm not home right now, is replaced by I'm not home anymore. Creepy. Good! Finally gets the message when the PS2 shuts off by itself. It was just this Christmas that went by and things were getting busy. I had to start buying presents for my family. I had finished shopping, but I still needed to grab a present for my little cousin. She is not very hard to shop for since she is 4. She likes things like Peppa Pig and My Little Pony. She really liked, and I say liked for a reason, Max and Ruby. So when I decided to go looking for a present, I figured something like a Max and Ruby DVD would be perfect, since she liked to watch it on a daily basis. However, Christmas meant that most of the online DVDs were sold out on most places. I went to look on eBay as well, but figured I could not trust what condition the DVDs would arrive in. So I was stuck in a rut for a while until that package arrived. I was at home, still scrolling for a stupid DVD, until I heard the sound of something being pushed into my letterbox. I caught a hold of it before my dog did and looked at the package. It seemed to be wrapped fairly badly, with what looked like grease marks and stains on it. Naturally, like anyone would, I decided to open the package. Inside was something that I could not explain. It was a Max and Ruby DVD, but I had not seen one like it online. It was like some little kid had drawn on the front cover with the marker. The title was just Max and Ruby, with what looked like a poorly drawn illustration of Max and Ruby on the front. There were no names or anything, but on the back it had a list of 4 episodes, all with blunt titles. Episode 0001, Episode 0002, Episode 0003, Episode 0004. I gave the DVD a watch over, and to my surprise, the episodes were all in perfect quality and seemed to have no flaws. It was as if it was a real DVD, just with the homemade cover. The only thing I thought was odd was the episode selection screen. The episode had names, but they were all called Max and Ruby 1, with numbers being changed as it went down the list. The actual selection screen was just a plain white screen with black text with the episode list and nothing else. After giving it much thought, I decided to change the cover to something a little nicer by printing out a DVD cover that I found on Google and tracked down the names of the episodes so they were labeled right. I left the episode list screen alone because I figured it was self-explanatory. Christmas went by and things were fine. I gave my little cousin her DVD and she was happy with it all through Christmas, but that was only because she had not watched it yet. Oh boy! On Boxing Day, the family had gone out for a meal and left me to babysit my cousin. I was not too bothered about being left alone. I figured now was a good time to put on the DVD for her. I had put the DVD in and let it play while I was in the kitchen eating my dinner. When I could hear she watched episodes 1 to 3 so far. Excuse me. I was just about to finish off my noodles when I heard my cousin screaming from the other room. Dropping everything, I had ran into the living room and saw my cousin curled up on the floor screaming. I had looked up at the TV and I felt my heart. What? I felt my heart in my throat? What? What I caught a glimpse of was one of the most terrifying things I had ever seen. It was what appeared to be a frame of Max and Ruby standing next to each other in complete darkness. But what made it so horrible was their lack of faces. They had lost their noses, mouths, and their eyes were replaced with big black holes. The colors were a disgusting blood red, and there was a faint static in the background. The sound was replaced. What was replaced with what sounded like the Max and Ruby theme playing backwards, with the faint sound of static in the mix. It had been one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen, and it must have been on screen for at least 20 seconds before the screen went black and the DVD turned off. Which alone was weird, because DVDs do not usually turn off by themselves. I was able to calm my cousin down, telling her it was not real. She had just had a nightmare, as she had fallen asleep in front of the DVD. However, I knew in my mind it was completely real. My parents had rung me up and told me they were going to be out all night, so this was going to be the best time of opportunity to look at this DVD more closely. I did not mention it to them, and as soon as they hung up, it says the hung up, I grabbed the DVD and stuck it on my laptop. What? As soon as it loaded, I noticed that the episode 4 had now been replaced with "Rest in Peace, Mommy and Daddy," which sent a deep chill down my back. Since my cousin was now asleep, I plugged in my earbuds so he can you just said she can sleep without having to hear anything. Normally, an episode of Max and Ruby would have 3 short stories. But this episode only had 1. It started off quite lighthearted. Max and Ruby were playing tag in the garden, and their parents were on the porch watching them play. However, something was off. The sound was playing in reverse. The parents' faces were that of sadness. It panned to the mother and father, and in a voice of deep sorrow, the father spoke. "It's just a shame. It's such a shame," he sighed. It then cut short to the sound of static and a loud scream, followed by the sound of 2 people choking. The sounds felt so real, it made me almost physically sick. The scene then switched to Max and Ruby standing in front of what looked like a gravestone labeled "Rest in Peace, Mommy and Daddy." The 2 of them had no faces. Nothing! At this point, there was also no sound, apart from faint static. This scene remained on the screen for about a minute and a half before it cut away to black. It then changed scene again, now showing Max and Ruby sitting in Ruby's room. Both of them were sobbing. The sobs were so realistic and heart-wrenching that it sounded like it was taken from a real person mourning. What happened next was probably the most disgusting yet saddest thing I've ever witnessed. The scene had changed to Max sitting in his room. He was standing on a chair with a noose hanging from the ceiling. He had brought it around his neck. The scene faded to black. The static got louder almost instantly. It then cut to Ruby walking in on her brother. The scene cut to black with loud static. When the screen returned, Ruby was standing, now on her own, in the garden by 2 gravestones. One labeled "Rest in Peace, Mommy and Daddy," and the other "Rest in Peace, Brother." She then started to look at the camera with glowing blue pupils to speak to me. Well, who's ever watching this is because you never watched any of me and my brother's episodes. So one of these days, you will regret this. The screen had faded to black afterwards. At this point, I had already been sick and I was sitting all shaken. The episode seemed to have come to an end at last. As the Maxim movie theme song played slowly in reverse, I was about to eject the DVD when the same image came up like it did on the TV. This time, however, there was text above the two rabbits that said, "Death is our only release." There were no credits or anything. It stayed on this for a few seconds before the DVD finally popped out on my laptop. I sat there trying to contemplate what had happened. In my shock and fear, I made the stupid decision to break the DVD up as much as I could before leaving the house. Shove the pieces down the drain. Thankfully, I kept a few screenshots, saved them to my laptop. The next couple of days went past without anything unusual happening. I had a few nightmares about the DVD, but luckily that was all. My cousin had gone back home along with the rest of the family. It was a late night and my parents had gone out for dinner, leaving me to watch TV. I heard what sounded like someone posting something through the door. At this point, the DVD had left my mind since I had not told anyone about it. However, it came flooding back when I looked down at the letter in front of me. It was just messily folded up and it read, "Death is our only release." So those are some two crappy creepypasta lads. Now I do think that the first one, and Col Campbell, did have some potential inside of it. I mean, like, a concept like this was done similarly. It was called Console Me, and where a ghostly entity, inhabits the game and helps the player along inside the game and contacts the player like that. And this creepypasta could have been great. It could have used that concept to make, the story a little bit, creepy. What I think should have been done is that before the creepy messages popped up, maybe we should have got, a little bit of insight on the character, the main protagonist. Maybe he's feeling a little bit depressed or on the verge of suicide. No, just kidding. Maybe before all the messages began, maybe the dad could have messed with the game by, displaying terrible graphics. Maybe the PS2, heating up a little bit too much so that, the son can, maybe figure out, oh, this thing's, kind of hot, so I should turn it off, like that. Maybe it could have done that, and it could have been great. Now, I wouldn't call this one really terrible, but I wouldn't call this one good either. It's just, the concept was pretty great and could have actually led to, creepy moments, but it fell inside the execution, alright? Now, let's get the Maxim movie, and by God, this one is the one I want to talk about. Hope. Oh my God. I said that Hope is Lost is the worst. No. Hope is Lost is the Harbinger experiment compared to this. The Harbinger experiment compared to this. So, this one wasn't really that good. I mean, like, come on, it just begins with, Christmas, Christmas, ding, 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 ding. Yeah, Christmas, and he tried to get his little cousin, little DVD, like, it's all fine there. And then, out of fucking nowhere, no explanation, the main protagonist gets a Max and Ruby DVD inside of, the mailbox or something. Now, tell me this. Would you, A, pick up the DVD and question how the person knew that you were trying to get a Max Movie DVD? Or B, would you go inside and, you know, be like, ooh, like, there's a DVD, might as well, you know, get it to my little because you don't know what's gonna be on that. Like, there could be like pornographic material on that DVD. Like, come on, man. Like, are you, like, the hell was that? And then we finally get to the episode, which wasn't really that good. It wasn't really that peachy either. All it really had was, you know, cliches up the ass. I mean, like, come on. It had, like, you know, the characters with black eyes, no faces, characters committing suicide, characters dying out of nowhere. Now, I do kind of like the concept of the origin of how, you know, why the parents aren't really present inside the episodes of Max and Ruby, because inside Max and Ruby, the parents aren't really there, and we could have gotten more insight inside that, but no, they just, you know, gloss over that, and just say that, you know, they died, or something like that. And I think inside an older version of this story, they killed themselves or something. It was like an abusive relationship. And you know what? If they actually kept that concept and, you know, kind of, you know, built it up a bit so it wouldn't be, you know, offensive to people, maybe it could have actually worked. But no, instead we get, like, you know, a cliched filled creepypasta with, you know, people committing suicide, and then at the end, all of a sudden we get nothing at all. No, just death is our only release. Oh yeah, and I just want to talk about that other thing too. Like, are you kidding me? The reason why they made this episode is because he didn't watch an episode of their show. Like, what? Are you serious? Are they really pissed about that? So that's really all I gotta say about the creepypasta. Maybe if they focus on the concept inside, you know, the past sentence, maybe they could have actually made it, you know, decent. But nah, they didn't. They just kept it with, you know, the clichéness and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like D&M with Col Campbell was better than Max and Ruby. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.
And don't forget that I came from the ghetto, so a new house for my mom.